Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to my review of tonight's edition of Smackdown. And tonight's Smackdown was, of course, Cincy Smackdown because, it was in Las Vegas tonight. But I gotta say, I thought tonight's Smackdown was a good show. I have to say it was a lot better than Raw last night. It was much, much better than Raw last night. I enjoyed the show. Thought it was a really good show. So let's get started. The show opened up with Kevin Owens coming out, saying, welcome to the Kevin Owens show, and he tells the crowd that the crowd better get used to him saying that, and he goes on to say he didn't fight back to Shane last week because he respects authority, and that Shane is a figure of authority, and now he's suing everybody in the WWE. He's gonna sue until SmackDown is no more. And he says that the first person he wants to fire from his show is Sami Zayn. Of course, they had good matches together, and it's a never-ending feud between the both of them. And what was funny was Owens says to Top Phillips and Byron Saxton to wear the same suits that they were wearing tonight, which was funny. And then he goes on to bring up Breezango and the Fashion Files. And he's like, oh, everybody loves the Fashion Files. Well, I'm gonna cancel the Fashion Files. And he ends up calling out Vince McMahon. And Shane's music hits, and we all think it's probably Shane. Probably they reinstated him from his suspension, but nope. Out comes Dolph Ziggler, and he's doing Shane's thing that he does with the shuffle, and then Dolph just talks about to Kevin Owens. Daniel Bryan ends up coming out saying to Owens that he doesn't run the show, that Owens doesn't run the show tonight, and that Daniel's running the show. And Owens says that when he takes over, he wants Daniel, to be like a janitor. And Daniel ends up saying that Owens should try that, try to be a janitor. Get back to what Owens said about Daniel. And he says that Daniel says that Vince is going to be here soon, and that he is not going to like what he's going to say to Owens. And Owens says that Vince is not going to like what he has to say to him. So it was a good opening segment with Owens. And then the first match we had tonight, it was AJ Styles versus Tye Dillinger for the United States Championship. And this match was a good match. Back and forth between Styles and Dillinger. The match flowed really, decently. You had, at one point in the match, Tye Dillinger hit the tiebreaker on Styles, and we thought Tye was gonna probably win the the United States Championship, but AJ Styles ended up kicking out. Baron Corbin ended up coming out. He got on the apron, but Styles just hit Baron with a phenomenal forearm, and Styles won the match. Still retains the United States title with the calf crusher to Tye Dillinger. And then after the match, Baron Corbin ends up taking out both Styles and Dillinger. He hits Styles with the End of Days. Corbin gets on the mic, and he says to Styles that next week he is going to be Styles' opponent for the United States title. So that's going to be pretty interesting to see next week. But all in all, Styles versus Dillinger, it was a good match. I really liked it. And then we had, after that, Rusev was being interviewed, about his trip to Bulgaria, going back home to Bulgaria. Rusev says that he needed the time to go after, he lost at SummerSlam to Randy Orton, and he says that he said that his family didn't greet him too well, and he felt, he went home a loser, and he says he's back now, to prove to everybody, and then he goes on to say that he must break a legend. So, a little interview with Rusev. And then after that, we had Jinder Mahal and the Singh brothers coming out. Mahal talks, about Nakamura and, his preparation for his match with him. And he says he's got to get in Nakamura's head. And he starts putting up facial expressions of Nakamura on the Titantron, and just Jinder and the Singh brothers are making fun of the facial expressions, just making fun of them. I gotta admit, I actually I found it funny. I actually found the segment funny, though, just by Nakamura's facial expressions. But it's gonna be an interesting match, Mahal and Nakamura once again. So it was a good segment with Jinder Mahal. Then after that, we saw Kevin Owens backstage. He's with this guy, I think it was developer. Owens making plans on how his show wants to go down, and he then approaches Sami Zayn, saying that he's about to own WWE, which is, of course, the biggest company in the world. And he tells Sami that he's going to be out of a job. And, they were just telling stories, how, they were in this, like, indie show, and, they drove in a blizzard just to make it there. It was just, Owens telling the story to Sami about, what they did back then. And then Sami, at the end of the segment, he says that he'd rather go back and wrestle for that sort of indie show than come work for Owens for Owens' show. So it was a little backstage segment with Owens and Sami. And then the next match was New Day versus the Usos. This was a Sin City Street fight for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. And this was a good match. This was a very enjoyable match. Probably, in my opinion, the best match of the night. It was just really crazy back and forth between them. You had them using chairs, kendo stick, and they set up a table outside of the ring. You had pretty much, when the SmackDown came back from commercial, you saw the Usos just taking out Big E, trying to knock him down. And then you had Kofi make the save, and he starts hitting the Usos with the kendo stick. The end of the match, you have the Usos going up top, but then you just had Kofi push one of the Usos into the table. And then the end of the match, you had New Day, which was, Big E and Kofi, hit one of the Usos with the Midnight Hour pin, and New Day wins the SmackDown Tag Team titles again. Really glad for that, even though the Usos' reign was short, considering they only held the titles for maybe 3 weeks or so since winning back the titles at SummerSlam. So, but all in all, it was a good match. It was probably the best match of the night, in my opinion. It was just a really enjoyable match between the both of them. Next was Natalya versus Naomi for the SmackDown Women's title. It was a decent match. Not great or perfect or by any means. You had Carmella and James Ellsworth at ringside. Carmella was on commentary. you had at one point where Naomi, no, not Naomi, Natalya was outside the ring, and Carmella just stood up and she pretty much put the Money in the Bank briefcase in Natalya's face. And then we saw Naomi jump from the top rope and took out Carmella, and James Ellsworth started beating the hell out of James Ellsworth. And that led to Natalya taking control of the match. And Natalya won the match, still retains the SmackDown Women's title with the sharpshooter. She put Naomi in the sharpshooter to win the match. So, but it was a decent match. It was nothing great or perfect. Then after that, we saw Aiden English and Kevin Owens backstage. Aiden English was just, practicing his sing-in. Owens says to Aiden that, he enjoys his voice and he wants Aiden to sing the theme song for his show. And then, we see Aiden's, singing, which was funny though, but yeah, Aiden English. Then after that, we had Dolph Ziggler coming out, saying that the entrances he did last week are done by wannabe superstars. And he says that he is the greatest in-ring performer in WWE history. He's just trying to make the crowd, think that he's this great star. But, he's not that great. And so he ends up coming out as Bayley. And then he does the Ultimate Warrior. Which, as I say, it was funny, when he came out as Bayley. It's just from here, it's like they don't know what to do with Dolph. They absolutely don't know what to do with him. And yeah, it's like at this point, he's begging for a release. So he's begging for WWE to release him, because if they keep on doing this, to him, even though some of it is funny, he's just, it doesn't look like they have nothing for him. It's like they don't have nothing to do with him. So, but yeah, I admit it was funny when he came out as Bayley. It gave me a good laugh. But they need to do something for him, for Dolph, because, like I said, if they keep doing this to him, it's gonna be a release for him, and this is gonna get old really quick. So, like I said, this looks like they have, nothing to do with him, nothing to do for him. So, then the next match, it was Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable versus the Hype Bros. It was okay, not perfect or great by any means. I mean, I like this tag team of Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable. I know a lot of people said, Chad Gable's going to be, the jobber now, since Jason Jordan is now on Raw. But surprisingly, the tables have turned. With Chad Gable winning some, probably 2 matches with Shelton Benjamin, and now Jason Jordan's losing matches on Raw. It's like now the tables have turned. Now Jason Jordan is apparently the jobber now. But really do hope when they turn Jason Jordan heel, that they actually give him much better competition, and he's hopefully he'll be much better as a heel. So, but Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable won the match, and at the end of the match, you had Shelton Benjamin and Chad Gable, shaking Mojo Rawley's hand, but Zack Ryder just walks out of the ring. So this is probably setting up Zack Ryder's heel turn and which will lead to the breakup of the Hype Bros. So, but yeah, it was just this was just an okay match. It was nothing great or perfect. It was the main event also. And after this, we had the final segment of the night where Vince McMahon returns. Him and Kevin Owens are in the ring. Vince ends up telling Owens that Owens made bad comments and disintegrated the McMahon name. And Vince said the reason Owens didn't fight back was Shane was kicking his ass. Or Shane was kicking Owens' ass. Vince says if Owens files the lawsuit, he will fire Owens. And Vince tells Owens that he has never lost a lawsuit, and that by the time the lawsuit is filed, Owens will already be bankrupt. Vince tells Owens that the reason he suspended Shane because Shane didn't kick Owens' ass hard, and that he's going to reinstate Shane, and that there is going to be a match. And I knew this was coming. There was talks about this. There were reports, articles of this. The match is going to be Shane versus Owens at Hell in a Cell, which is going to be inside Hell in a Cell. So that's going to be interesting to see. Last year, Shane was just in a Hell in a Cell with Undertaker at WrestleMania 32 last year. So now a year later, he's in another Hell in a Cell match with Owens, which is going to be coming up. And Owens, likes that, and he shakes, Vince's hand, and then Owens ends up headbutting Vince, busting Vince wide open. You see blood coming from Vince's forehead, and Owens ends up telling Vince that he could beat a McMahon senseless, and we see Vince get back up, but Owens just punches him back down. Owens gives a lot of kicks to Vince. He ends up super kicking him when he's on the ground. And, the officials are coming from the back trying to help Vince. And Owens is just, still going crazy. He's going too far. And he goes up to the top, and he ends up hitting a frog splash on Vince, which was crazy. Vince was just knocked out. And, officials from, back from the back, they brought out a gurney for Vince to get on. You had Stephanie ended up making an appearance. She comes out there. She helps, her father. Vince didn't use the gurney. They just brought him to the back, helped him walk to the back. And that pretty much, ended the show. But that whole segment was really good. It's spelling trouble now for Owens that he did that to Vince. So anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's edition of SmackDown. One thing to announce before I end the video: the Mae Young Classic had the final match tonight, and Kai Ni, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Let me look it up here. See, because this match was this final match in the Mae Young Classic. This match was so good. It was so good. Enjoyed this match from beginning to end, and it was Kairi Sane She won. She won the first ever Mae Young Classic. She defeated Shanza Baszler. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She was, former UFC fighter. But like I said, this whole match was so good. Really enjoyed it. And Kairi Sane really deserved that win. She's now the first ever winner of the Mae Young Classic, and what a moment it was. It was just really enjoyable, really good, and I enjoyed the whole Mae Young Classic. All those women who participated in that tournament, all very talented, I thought, in my opinion. So, yeah, so anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's edition of SmackDown. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all back here tomorrow night for my Lucha Underground review, which is the 100th episode tomorrow of Lucha Underground. So, until that video, I'll see you all back here tomorrow night.